Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox here on YouTube. I'm your host, Daniel Daly. You're probably thinking I usually show my face on this one, but I'm on a different location, so I'm just going to be recording, but I have some graphics. So there's that. Before I get started, I want to just give a shout out to Mr. Vincent, the Mr. Vincent podcast on Spotify. I've been on there quite a little bit lately, talking playoff basketball. But Emmanuel Vincent, who's the host of that podcast, does a great job talking about sports and amongst other things of wrestling and football. So looking to be on there a little bit more as well. Especially having him on my podcast as well because he's very knowledgeable and does his due diligence on the games and stuff we're both interested in. So, of course, check that out. Of course, the Mr. Vincent podcast on Spotify and other listening platforms. But let's get into this episode here. Episode 46. I'm going to be making my semifinal picks of the second round of the NBA playoffs, which we have had a little bit more progression in. So we already know there's some games tonight. Of course, I'm filming this before the Celtics and Philly game and before the game 2 of Nuggets and Suns. But also, I want to touch base on the playoff MVPs so far. There's been a couple of performances that have been otherworldly and guys that have been playing really well. So I want to get into that as well. But let's start off with my playoff predictions. And the first one, we have the Denver Nuggets versus the Phoenix Suns. The Nuggets are currently up 1-0 before game 2. I'm recording this. But I picked the Denver Nuggets in 6 in this series just because I believe they have a little bit more depth. They kind of know who they are a little bit. They've been together for a couple of years and have a couple of more guys that they can rely on to bring in there. So, and the ability to get stops. They have guys that have defensive abilities in terms of KCP, Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon. They brought some guys in, and I thought those were the things that they needed to bring in to kind of bring their team a little bit better together. You know, Jamal Murray's a good-sized guard, and he defends well, but next to him, you have Michael Porter Jr., you have Nikola Jokic. You need some guys who can kind of fill those gaps on the floor, especially defensively, and I feel like those three guys – especially Aaron Gordon next to Joker. I feel like that improved their team tremendously. But KCP and Bruce Brown, the ability to knock down shots and be disruptors and just bring that energy. But a lot of guys off the bench, like Jeff Green, still in old age. Chris Brown as well, Bruce Brown, all these guys that they're able to at least plug and play and bring in, I think can play big dividends in this matchup. And we saw in game 1 that happened as I did a recap the other night. Check out that episode as well. But I just feel like Phoenix Suns really don't have no answers for on the defensive side of the ball. And in terms of depth, who they turn to in those pivotal moments where guys need rest, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, for them to even have a chance, are going to have to play a high minutes load in this series. And when you look at the term of Chris Paul at this stage in his career, being that old at 39 years old, 38, 39 years old, you're asking too much for him to navigate this guard-driven league where every offense is basically ran through the guard spot to cover in transition, defend at a high level, fight through all these picks. He's going to try to do that because that's who Chris Paul is, but it's just a little too much going after Murray in this series. And I just feel like, especially when those guys need rest on the Phoenix Suns, I just don't think it's going to be there. Of course, you have the two-time reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic as well. I think he's going to win that matchup against Ayton, and they desperately need Ayton to play up to par, right? Like DeAndre Ayton is going to have to at least play on par with Joker as well and be dominant on the boards, which he wasn't in game 1, which is going to be difficult. I feel like I'm looking around and it doesn't look like there's a whole team here for Phoenix. It doesn't look like there's a lot of depth, and I feel like that's going to be the ultimate difference, especially with the high minutes total that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant played in the first series with the Clippers there, even without Paul George and without Kawhi Leonard the last couple of games. I feel like that's going to play a factor here too, where they really don't have anybody else to rely on. The only chance that they would have, especially, again, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, is going to have to play the whole series and really double down on their offense. They're going to have to find some type of offense there ultimately for this team, and it's just like I do not know if they can do that consistently, even though they are a high offensive power team, but defensively, they're not going to be able to get stops. And offensively, who else are they going to rely on to help them out if it's not DeAndre Ayton, who they don't feature a lot, who was 7-11 for the first game, and just I don't know how that turns around for them. So for that one, I have the Denver Nuggets in 6. Moving on to my second series here. I have the Miami Heat for going up against the New York Knicks. Of course, Miami took game one last night. In a 90s throwback series, that's going to be gangbusters, going to be very physical, be intense. But I'm going to go with Miami Heat in 7. Not 7, 6. My bad, 6. Am I even on? Yeah, I'm going to go with Miami Heat in 6 there. Just because I just think Miami's going to be able to catch them, right? And Miami can, at least for the most part during this playoffs, have been able to shoot the ball a little bit better than their counterparts going up against Milwaukee and then the New York Knicks right now. I think they're going to be able to shoot a little bit better than the New York Knicks, even though the New York Knicks do have versatile guards out there that they can rely on: Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett. But I just feel like Miami kind of knows what they are. And then they get into those situations and they actually know the moment, right? They have the experience there, even though without Tyler Hero for the most part and Victor Oladipo, they have guys that were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, Kevin Love, who has been in NBA Finals. So this team of the Miami Heat kind of know how to win, right? Like they know how. We know what they are. We know they're a proven commodity, whereas the New York Knicks haven't really. They had their way in the first round, of course, upsetting the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I was completely wrong about. Yeah, just completely wrong about the New York Knicks. Really shocked them. And of course, being already down 1-0 without Randall, where I thought that Randall could create a little bit more of havoc, a little bit more offensive balance there for the New York Knicks there and give them a different dynamic and kind of get some of those Miami guys in trouble and get to that bench where it's a little thinner right now. I just think Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo know what they are. They've been there before, even Kevin Love. I feel like the experience factor on that end could derail the Knicks in this one here, and especially with the way Jimmy Butler, who's playing fantastic, who I'll talk about in a little bit, is playing fantastic. And you're getting production from Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, who came out and shot the ball really well for them in the first game there. So there's just a couple. I know what the Miami Heat are, right? Especially being a Celtics fan, facing them in the Eastern Conference Finals. You think about Heat culture from Pat Riley to Eric Spoelstra, and then you get to Jimmy Butler. That's really tough. And especially, again, respect to the Knicks, of course, with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Tibbs. We know they're not going to go down easy, but I think Miami can, especially stealing game one last night, stealing the first game of the series like they did in Milwaukee, is going to be interesting to see if the Knicks can answer back. I think they need to be a little bit more physical, play up that part a little bit more. But I think the Miami Heat can get that in 6 with Jimmy Butler. And to get that performance from Kyle Lowry in game one has also been impressive, right? Like Kyle Lowry, who has been dormant all season, to come in that moment and play against the Knicks and kind of show a little bit of the Kyle Lowry that we've seen in Toronto a little bit later in his career there in Toronto. The ability to step up and hit certain shots and be able to dictate. The ability to do that late in that game was fantastic for them in game one. I think they'll be able to continue that. And Bam Adebayo continue to battle Mitchell Robinson. And to do that is just, I think that's going to be a vital part there. Yes, I have the Heat in 6 in that one. Moving on to a series that, as a Celtics fan, I can't wait to watch, especially soon. I just finished talking about this on the Mr. Vincent podcast where we broke down the series overall. Of course, we also broke that Woj reported Joel Embiid will be out game one, which bodes well for my Celtics. And with that being said, I think I got the Celtics in 5 or 6 in this series, most likely 5, especially if Joel is hobbled. I just don't think Philadelphia has a lot of answers for the Boston Celtics. I really just don't think they do. When you look at the Boston Celtics, you're looking at Marcus Smart, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, even to a certain extent. And you go to these guys that you know have performed on that level and have been a part of that and have been in those battles, especially last year, and building over the course of the year, and then especially bringing in Malcolm Brogdon this year and the addition that he is, reigning 6th man of the year. And then you look at Philadelphia, who, without Joel Embiid right now, you look at James Harden, who has been wishy-washy in the playoffs at best, has not been able to step up. He's been to a couple Western Conference Finals. but the inability to really, at this stage, take over games. Of course, we get a couple hints in vintage James Harden there. We get a little bit of this and that, a little bit there. But when you look overall in this series, does he have an advantage at his spot? He's going to have to go up against Marcus Smart. He's going to have to go up against Derek White. He's going to have to go against Malcolm Brogdon. On switches, he's going to get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And then if he switches over to Al Horford's at least a little bit savvy enough to hold him a little bit. And that might be his best advantage, kind of how we've seen Trae Young do Al Horford in the first series there against Boston, Atlanta. But I just don't think there's going to be enough of those opportunities, especially without Joel Embiid coming in and providing that help factor. I just don't see them, especially on the offensive end. And as I rattled all those guys off for the Boston Celtics, you move on to the Philadelphia 76ers side of things. And you start looking around, and then it's like, oh, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, who has been a bright spot for them. Now you're relying on guys like Tobias Harris, George Niang, Shake Middleton, Paul Reed, guys of that nature. And it's like, are those guys reliable enough to help you in this series long term? Even if it goes 5, 6, 7, are those guys going to be able to build confidence? And especially Joel Embiid on a bad wheel whenever he does return. Is that going to be enough for Philadelphia right now to be in the driver's seat to win a championship or to get past the Boston Celtics for that matter? And when you're looking at it from that standpoint, it's like, no. Boston has had their number. Yes, Joel Embiid has had 52 against us, against the Boston Celtics. It's like, okay, that's one game. Is he going to consistently do that now on a bad wheel, a bad right knee, that a brace that he's saying that he's playing on? So it's very difficult right there to see any pathway for Philadelphia looking at their roster, which is weird because they were one of the better teams during the regular season and stumbled a little bit. And you think about, is James Harden going to be able to have that vintage performance? And it's just like right now at this certain moment, playing against the Boston Celtics team, who I believe got a wake-up call against the Atlanta Hawks, are they going to be able to go into those deep waters and battle this team, the Celtics? And I just don't think so. I think they might be able to get a game at best when Embiid comes back, maybe game 3 or 4. Maybe they're able to stave off a sweep. But I really just don't see them beating the Boston Celtics. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And that's just a tough ask for them. That's a tough ask for that Philadelphia 70 team without hold on 1 second. It's just tough. It's just a tough ask for that team to go in there and then be like, hey, we got to win one without our best player, without our MVP on the season, and try to overcome this Boston Celtics team, who is one of the better teams in the league, who has been a top team in the league so far. And that is really tough. I just don't see it for that standpoint. And I got the Celtics in 5 or 6, mainly leading to 5. I want to say 5. Celtics in 5. They get back to Boston once. I think Philly can get a game. Moving on here, we got the Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, the Golden State Warriors dispatching the Sacramento Kings in a valiant effort. And, of course, we got the Los Angeles Lakers, who have taken over got a little problem there. Who have taken over the – I didn't need to scroll that. Let me start again. Sorry about that. We got the Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers. 6-7 matchup, which you really don't see in the NBA. But we have these two teams here. The Sacramento Kings went down to the Golden State Warriors in 7. It took a 50-point performance from Steph Curry in Game 7 to finish that one there. And Golden State really just riding the momentum off of that. And, of course, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, who dispatched of the Memphis Grizzlies in 6 games, which was unfortunate, especially as I wanted the Lakers to lose. But you got to give the Lakers credit. They took control of that series, and they put a 40-piece on the Memphis Grizzlies on their way out. Now, this one is a real tough series, right? Like, you got contrasting styles, whereas Golden State can go small, And you have the depth of the Lakers and the size of the Lakers, which they can play big and provide a couple more rim protection than the Sacramento Kings were. So it's definitely difficult to decide in this series. And of course, you got LeBron James and Steph Curry, two legendary players of this magnitude, and this is in the second round. I really can't think of a playoff matchup of this magnitude, of this much history on the line, probably since the 90s, of those old aging players that we saw in the 90s and that type of era. This is probably it for this era, right? Like, you got LeBron James, Steph Curry, both from Ohio, have been intertwined, right, with each other for the past half decade, right? Who's the best player? Of course, the NBA Finals matchup where Curry had the advantage in those situations, where he won 3-1 in those situations, and now we get this round here. And then even in the play-in matchup a couple years ago, you had LeBron James and Steph Curry, the Lakers. I believe it was LeBron's second season there, in the play-in against the Golden State Warriors, and LeBron took that one. And then, especially at that time, with everything in the state of flux of Golden State, Klay Thompson being out, Draymond Green being out, you really thought that might have been the last iteration of the Golden State Warriors. They were able to extend their run even more. They flipped it on its head, battled back, won a championship last year, Steph Curry Finals MVP, and they're back again. The Lakers won the championship in 2021. So, the 2020 season, sorry. The NBA bubble season, 2020 season. And now we're back again. Two recent champions. Two teams that look drastically different than last year and the previous years that they were competing. The Lakers making a bunch of changes there. And I was on the Mr. Vincent podcast kind of stumped about this one, because it seems like the Lakers have the depth, right? And kind of it's like the opposite of the Suns-Nuggets series, right? Where they have the depth, they have the size. And then you look at the Warriors, who have the pedigree, who have Steph Curry playing at a high level, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney. It's a little bit different, right, with both these matchups, right? And you look at Los Angeles with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jared Vanderbilt, Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell. You're going down the line here, and it's like they have a little bit more depth, a little bit more guys they can play. They've been great on the defensive end. And even with that, I'm probably going to go with the Golden State Warriors, right? Because I think their pedigree, at least in those certain times, have proven right? And it's kind of difficult to pick against LeBron James in a 7-game series. But there's been one guy who has been better during that time frame in playoff series. I believe LeBron James, I said, is at 71% in playoff series. Steph Curry is at 85%. I believe Stephen A. broke that down today on First Take. But looking at Steph Curry and what he's been able to do, looking at this Golden State Warriors team, the ability just to find a way to do whatever it needs to do done is remarkable, right? Like, everything was going bad in that series last series. They were down 2-0. They had to battle back. They took the 3-2 lead. They lost in Oracle in Game 6, and they found a way to take that series, right? And rip the hearts out of Sacramento, especially Steph Curry ripping the heart out of Sacramento. And then when you really look at the advantages that the Golden State Warriors have in terms of playing small, right? In terms of playing small ball, they can be out there with Looney and surrounded by shooters. They can be out there with Draymond and figure that point out. And I feel like Memphis at times couldn't go small, and whatever their small lineup wasn't as effective as we've seen the Golden State Warriors be, right? And you got Steph Curry playing at a high level. LeBron James got some rest, and he knows Steph Curry is coming. This is going to be a battle, I believe, of different playing styles. And even though I have the Warriors in 7, I don't feel comfortable with that because of the depth of the Lakers. But LeBron James playing long series isn't probably the best for him right now. Anthony Davis can go out at any point in time, even if it's for a game or for the last 15 minutes of a game. He can get hurt at any time. Even though I have the Warriors in 7, I don't feel comfortable saying that. But because I feel like Anthony Davis at some point is going to have to be the X factor for the Lakers. And if there's any series that he needs to be the X factor, it's this series right here, where he can have an advantage. If he gets Kevon Looney in foul trouble, he's going to be battling Draymond Green. I don't even know who the backup big is for the Golden State Warriors, if they have one. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, I think the Warriors can make enough shots and get enough stops at some points to overpower the Lakers. And I got them in 7 in that series. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes down in the second round here. And then we get to the conference finals. Of course, I'll be talking basketball as well. But the second round is going to be interesting. For the first time in NBA history, every seed is represented in the second round. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all in the second round for the first time in the NBA history. Shows to how crazy this season has been with injuries and teams playing outside themselves and figuring out. But look at all the star power that we have there. We got LeBron, we got Steph, we got Joker, we got Durant, we got Jimmy Butler, Jalen Brunson, James Harden for the most part, Joel Embiid when he returns, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. So you got a lot of star power here, and I can't wait to see it, of course, starting tonight. And we'll talk about that. Moving on here, we're going to be talking about the playoff MVP so far. I feel like there's been a lot of high-level play so far in the NBA playoffs regarding all these players playing really well, outstepping their boundaries, as we'll talk about as well. Guys that are playing at a really high level. And the first person I want to talk about is Nikola Jokic, right? You don't think about this guy. He's a two-time reigning MVP. People always give him crap. Which is unfortunate. And it's just like this guy's still playing at a high level. They dispatched the Wolves in 5 or 6, I believe. I can't remember. But Nikola Jokic, 25.8 points per game, 13.5 rebounds, 8.7 assists in the playoffs. Let's remember that. In the playoffs, folks. Like this guy is still playing whatever you guys want to say. You guys want to doubt him, say he doesn't play defense, whatever the case may be. He's that effective on the offensive end. We saw it in game 1. Against the Phoenix Suns there, even when he's not passing the ball and doing all that stuff, he's still hitting outlet passes, of course, and doing stuff of that nature. But his ability on the glass, his ability to score in different ways, outside, inside, from the line, like he's that efficient on the offensive end, pushing Denver to new heights like that. We can't ignore what he's doing, and especially in this matchup against DeAndre Ayton, he can only improve his ranking so far. I wanted to go with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but they couldn't finish the Hawks in 6, so that's why I don't have them on this list right now. But I feel like there's a better duo, which I'll get into right now, with Nikola Jokic there and the next person on this list. But I just feel like Nikola Jokic, he doesn't get talked about enough. People are ignoring him. People try to disrespect him, discredit him, and it's just not warranted. Like this guy's one of the best players in the basketball in the game, one of the best passing big men. I will say that. I don't care what nobody says. He's the best passing big man. We have seen enough. And his efforts to really realize, hey, my other guys have it going. Let me impact the game a different way. He's able to do that on the glass, as we saw with the offensive rebounds in the first game against the Suns. This guy's legit, and it's about time people start realizing that he is that guy. At some point, we're going to have to realize that. At some point. Moving on to the next person here on this list, it is Jamal Murray. Really stating his claim, getting back to form. In all season, I felt like Joker was kind of getting these guys involved, and I feel like a great recipient of that is Jamal Murray. And people say, I've been in arguments with people saying that he's not, Joker doesn't create this guy who he is, and I'm not disrespecting Jamal Murray. And when I say that Joker was getting these guys ready, getting their confidence up, I'm not saying he's impacting those guys to that point. But in terms of what this guy's doing, Jamal Murray, we have to start respecting him. Take off that Bubble Murray label, please, because this guy gets buckets in bundles. He's able to hit his jumper off pick and rolls, ISO situations. He's able to attack the defense. It's about time we start talking about him as one of the better guards in the NBA. If you want to put Dame, you want to put Steph, you want to put Ja in front of him, he might be a little tier below those guys, but he's big time. And it's about time we start respecting him, and especially seeing in these series here, warming up and playing as he is. It's about time we start respecting him as a basketball player and take off that Bubble Murray label when he was coming back from injury, all this stuff here. Even I questioned at certain points in the time. I was like, do they need to upgrade there, just because I don't know how he's going to come back from the injury? And I've even been shutting up about that because of the way he's been playing and the way he's been stepping up. And it's playoff time, and he's showing up again. And they have a really good chance to get to the Western Conference Finals against the Suns team. And we'll see how that goes. But it's just, we got to start respecting Jamal Murray, his game. And he said it on TNT. He was like, yo, man, you guys got to start respecting my game. And he doesn't know what else to do But just keep balling, man. And we love watching you play out there and put the ball in the basket and be one of the better guards in the NBA for a long time. So continue to do that. Hoping for more big time performances, especially in the Sun series. And especially, I believe they're going to get to the Western Conference Finals. And that's not just because Nikola Jokic. That's also because he has Jamal Murray. And his Denver team is a lot better with him on it. And they're a lot better than people are expecting. And a lot of people that they think they're a lot better than people think that they are. And it's really disrespectful just to say the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Suns and the Clippers. People were picking everybody else besides Denver. And it's like, no, there's something here that people need to be paying attention to. And Jamal Murray is one of those reasons why Denver should be a little bit more respected than they have been. Moving on here to the number 3 person in this list, Devin Booker. Devin Booker, number 3 on this list here. Now, what can we say? This is probably the highest level of Devin Booker we've seen since the finals. And, of course, he had those 40-point games in the finals. He's averaging 35.5 points per game, 6.7 assists, and 4.8 rebounds. And you think about how masterful excuse me. Think about how masterful Devin Booker has been these playoffs and been as efficient and been one of the top guards in the league. He's been absolutely taking advantage of that Clipper series that we saw in game 1 where he really got off and there was just no answers for him. Had a good game 1. I think that was more due to the lack of depth of the Phoenix Suns than anything else. But Devin Booker he's shown that he has arrived on that level of player. And people have questioned him. And of course, I've always given him trouble for the we're in practice while you doubling, we're in pickup while we doubling and stuff like that. Of course, all that stuff. But this guy is legit. He's a legit scorer. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. And he's finally being on show with that. He's averaging more than Kevin Durant, who is 4th in all-time leading playoff per game scores in league history. So he's averaging more than Kevin Durant does over these playoffs. So there has to be a little bit more respect on his name. We'll see how that goes into this series against Denver, where they're really going to need his scoring ultimately overall. But yeah, you can't be more impressed with this guy. He's also having 2.3 steals and a block average in over the course of these playoffs. So he's doing it on both ends, where defense was kind of a question mark of him. He's actually stepping up on the defensive end, scoring the basketball at a really, really the highest level. I think him and Jimmy Butler are the 2 highest scorers in the playoffs so far. And you just have to respect this guy and what he's been able to do. And his level of play has increased. We have to respect Devin Booker, but they're definitely going to need his production going forward in the series against Denver. But he's in 3rd place on my MVP so far. Moving on to that guy, Stephen Curry, right? Stephen Curry. The 50-point game in Game 7 people probably think he's the MVP so far of the playoffs so far. A 7-game series where they really needed his offense throughout that series and the way he was able to do it. And you thought these young boys and De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk were going to overtake the Warriors, especially with the 2-0 lead. They battled back in 3-2. There was a high chance people were picking the Kings. Even I picked the Kings at 7. I thought the Kings would have gotten them. But to see Steph Curry's performance, see his impact basically carrying this Warriors team all season, working Klay Thompson back and who has been fantastic coming back. Andrew Wiggins just came back. Draymond Green out 1 game. And you're really just looking around and you're like, there's no help on the bench. Guys are missing games, getting ejected. Draymond Green for that instance. Jordan Poole has not been effective. Andrew Wiggins is getting his feet back wet. You look at the bench, you got Dante DiVincenzo, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, all these other guys that are really not paying dividends right now. And Steph Curry continues to just raise his game. Continuously continues to raise his game into age as he builds on his body, as he gets stronger, as he works harder. And he's that guy. And people are even having the conversation, is he the best point guard of all time? And I sat there and I said, he's not better than Magic, because I think Magic I think Magic can do it all. Maybe not shoot like Steph Curry. As they said, shooting is the one thing Steph Curry has over Magic Johnson. And I think they talked about it on First Take as well. He's in the conversation because that magnitude of him shooting impacts literally everything the Golden State Warriors do. When you look at this team in terms of how they move the ball, Steph Curry's ability to play off ball, on ball, He's able to do all of that. But the gravity that he creates, where he's creating switches on off-ball screens, where he's darting across the court, running, one of the highest conditioned athletes ever. We have to start talking about him in that sense too. Yes, he doesn't rebound like a Magic Johnson. He doesn't run the offense like a Magic Johnson, but his impact on shooting the basketball, scoring, getting into the lane, he's doing it all. We've seen it this series. Also getting 5 points and 5 assists on nearly 34 points a game, shooting it efficiently. And let's be honest, that could have been the end of the Warriors' run when we think about it, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Draymond Green, right? Klay Thompson and Steph are obviously going to be there. Klay Thompson's in contract negotiation. So we're looking around here and we're like, what is the next phase of this team? And Steph Curry saved it. He extended it. Think about that. This dynasty could have been over. We heard about runs ending all the time. And he extended it. He extended that. Steph Curry, one guy, saved that franchise in terms of that dynasty, that run, whatever it is. He extended that. And that has to be respected. And we have to start looking at Steph Curry in that conversation. Is he drifting up the top 10 ranks? My top 10 has been solidified for a long time. There's only been LeBron James that has been able to break into the top 10 for me in terms of this new era. And when you think about what Steph Curry has been able to do, has been able to battle, and has been able to improve on his body, looks like he can play until 40, looks like he's going to continue to shoot the ball really well. We've never seen that. So with that said, he could be entering my top 10. And that's not just in terms of he needs another championship or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to do that. If he continues to play like this at a high level, he will be in my top 10. If he continues to win at a high level and then get to the finals and win another championship, there's going to be a lot of discussions happening, not on Sports Talk Radio, in basketball history. Like, we're going to have to start looking at him as one of those guys that are in the upper echelon of NBA players forever. That conversation's going to happen. So we'll see what happens with that. But Steph Curry's second on my MVP ranking. And you're probably wondering, why is Steph Curry second? Why is he second? Who's playing better than Steph Curry at this point in time? And there's only one person that I can go to and say that he's playing at that high level. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets. Jimmy Bundles. Himmy Butler. Whatever you want to call him. Jimmy Butler has been that guy this playoffs. We have to start respecting Jimmy Butler. Another guy who you wouldn't think about. Another guy who you think is on the outside looking in. Another guy that you think about as a guy that you would pick plenty of players before him. But being as a Jimmy Butler fan, there's a lot of people that I'm taking Jimmy Butler over. And a couple of them are on this list. Just a couple. So there's 2 people. I'll let y'all figure that out. I'm not going to do that. But Jimmy Butler has looked like he came from the depths of hell, right? Like, they lost to Atlanta in that play-in series. They were going up against Chicago, who I thought was a little bit more deeper, had a little bit more dynamic scoring, and Jimmy Butler wins that game. He goes into Milwaukee, takes a 2-1 lead. Yes, Giannis is down. And is playing magnificent, insanely, godly-like performances. 56, 42 points in one game. 56 points in one game, 42 points in one game. He was down 6 in Milwaukee, looked at Drew Holiday in the face, and said, "I own you." Let me say that again. He was down 6, being guarded by Drew Holiday. And they turn around and win the game on the road and put Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, who are champions, who have won 2 years ago, and beat them 4-1. Does anybody understand that? Does that make sense? It does not make sense what this guy is doing, Jimmy Butler is doing for this Miami Heat team, who was down Tyler Hero, Victor Oladipo, playing with Gabe Vincent, Matt Strus, Kevin Love, who we thought was a shell of himself. And he's navigating. Oh, and guess what, people? They won game 1 the other day. So they're up 1-0 against the New York Knicks. as an 8 seed in the second round, led by Jimmy Butler. And I sat there and I asked the people in the group and sit and talk, a group I'm in, a sports group I'm in, one of the better sports groups. And I asked, is Jimmy Butler this era's Reggie Miller? Not in terms of play style, but in terms of guys raising their level of play. Because Jimmy Butler and Reggie Miller have been on that 20 point per game, roughly around there, a little bit above that during the regular season. But when the playoffs happen, it goes to high 20s and it goes to 30s. What these guys are able to do on a nightly basis for guys that were not supposed to be elite, guys who you would pick, plenty of guys who you would pick before them. These guys in the playoffs are different. There's a reason why they are able to do what they're able to do, because they sense the moment. They take advantage of certain things, and they're able to raise their level of play. Jimmy Butler is one of those guys. Another guy said to me, Sam Jones, especially playing with the Celtics, and I'm like, he was that guy. He just played with Hondo and Bill Russell. So no discredit to Sam Jones. But in the modern era, of course, I'll talk about the modern era because that's what I mainly know. Jimmy Butler is one of those guys. And I was on the Mr. Vincent podcast, and he said, is Jimmy Butler a Hall of Famer? And when you look at it, it's heading in that direction of yes, especially if he continues to have these playoff series, especially if he continues to play at a high level. Jimmy Butler is that guy. Now, is he the first ballot Hall of Famer that you would pick off the front row? No, he's not. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But it's time we start respecting Jimmy Butler for what he's doing and appreciate what he's doing. And I'm going to throw a shot here at the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Chicago Bulls, even the Philadelphia 76ers. You could have had this Jimmy Butler being as productive. You could have had this Jimmy Butler leading y'all through the playoffs. You could have had Jimmy Butler, a consistent hand, a guy that shows up in the playoffs on both ends of the floor, I might add you, and been in better positions. And all you guys didn't think he was that guy. You guys picked multiple people over him. And Jimmy Butler's still standing. I just want to point that out. Philadelphia's going to get eliminated. That's going to happen. Minnesota's gone home. Chicago has gone home. You guys have picked everybody over Jimmy Butler. And at some point, you're going to reap what you sow. And that's what's happening. You guys in Minnesota are stuck with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert now. In Chicago, you guys don't know what you're doing with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. You guys don't even have Lauri Markkanen. Philadelphia is struggling. They're stuck with Tobias Harris. Joel Embiid is hurt right now. Who was cool with Jimmy Butler, by the way. You guys don't even have Ben Simmons. James Harden's wording around that he might be leaving. But there's one guy still remaining out of all those teams. A guy that they didn't consider was good enough. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets. He's still going. Somehow, some way, undermanned team. Putting the team on his back numerous times. And he's doing it again. But that's how I want to end episode 46 here. With Jimmy Butler, the playoff MVP so far this season. We're going to continue talking about basketball. I'm going to try to have Emmanuel Vincent and other people on the podcast as well going forward. Ring takes will continue this week as we talk about the GOAT bracket. We're finally going to get to that. I have some voting from Facebook and Instagram. And as we move on, we'll continue talking about that and wrestling, of course, as the draft is happening, and more basketball. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.